Moving on to the last team that is in the division is my beloved Cincinnati Bengals. Runner-up, Super Bowl. I would say Super Bowl second place champions. Is that fair to say?
Nope. That's soft.
Shut up. Tell me when the commies get there, Dave. Cincinnati Bengals depth chart, loaded, in my opinion, with fantasy football talent. Just take the top 5 guys you see on that list: Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd. All of those guys are going to be drafted in your leagues. All of those guys are probably going to be drafted fairly high. Jamar Chase, probably the first guy off the board in this list, for good reason. I would say probably Joe Mixon, maybe close second. Joe Burrow is going to be a guy that gives you consistent value. And when you are in a 2-quarterback league like we are, if you can't get 2 top-tier quarterbacks, I would probably put Joe Burrow in that top 10 category. According to ESPN, he is in the top 10. Playing 2-quarterback leagues is probably one of the funnest things we've ever done because it does make you think about your draft and how you're going to draft quarterbacks, especially if you play 2 quarterbacks and keepers, because most of the time our keepers are our quarterbacks. If you're in a league that doesn't do that, you redraft every year, and you don't have a stat stuffer, Joe Burrow is a guy to target, man. He's going to have a big year this year. I have a feeling. Is it going to be Super Bowl run worthy? I don't know. That's too hard to tell. The player that I think is going to have a drop in production is probably going to be Jamar Chase. He's not going to take anybody by surprise anymore. Obviously, he's very talented. He's going to be a guy that he will get targets. Will he get yards and catches? That's to be determined. I think teams are going to start playing defense against the Bengals a little bit better. I feel like they took him by surprise, or he took the world by surprise last year with his ability to get open. I don't think that's going to be happening this year. The player on the Bengals that I think should be drafted and kept on a roster at all times is probably T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins has the most to gain out of anybody on that list of receivers in the Bengals rooms. He's going to be the guy as the second option at all times. He puts up big numbers, even being covered. He's not going to get your number 1 cornerback coverage. Their defense is not planning around T. Higgins, but he is a number 1 receiver without Jamar Chase on the field. He's going to be a number 1 receiver on a lot of other teams. So, Tyler Boyd, he's going to be another guy that I don't want to throw him off to the side, but he's going to be a good flex player for deep leagues. He's going to get his touches. He's sure-handed. When Joe Burrow is in scramble, he needs to throw somebody. He needs to find somebody open. They need a first down for sure. They're going to Tyler Boyd. He's going to catch the ball. He caught every pass thrown to him except for the one that mattered last year in the Super Bowl. So, let's get y'all's opinions on the Bengals. How do you guys stack up when you're drafting teams in your leagues? And your team makeup has a lot to do with where you're headed and what you target. But with the Bengals here, who do you target the most? And which player do you think gives you the most value in where you're going to get them at?
Yeah, when I look at this list, I'm looking at Joe Mixon being the one that's probably going to be the most value. ESPN has him at the number 7 running back. And I think every year that he's stayed healthy, he has produced as a top 10 running back. But like, Frank, you're going on and on about the 3 wide receivers, and that's kind of what scares me. I'm currently in a situation right now where I have to decide between Jamar Chase and Cooper Kupp as my keeper in a league. And I'm kind of leaning Cooper Kupp because I just don't know if Jamar Chase is going to continue hitting all those home run balls that he did game after game. What did he hit? He hit the Chiefs for 3. Was that week 16? And that was his game. He'd go 0 catches, and then boom, he'd have 2 for 95 yards. So the ESPN has Chase at number 3 wide receiver. He's a sophomore. Sophomore slumps are real. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me to say that Jamar Chase is number 3 fantasy guy off the board. He might be the number 3 talent in the league, but like you all said, they're going to start playing defense way differently against the Bengals. The Bengals have arrived. People know about them. They're not just going to walk into Cincinnati and think they got the W like they were last year. But I would agree. I mean, Burrow's top 10. You know, if you aren't worried about a quarterback, if you don't need Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, you're going to wait to get your guy that's going to give you consistent 20, 25 points. Joe Burrow is going to be your dude that you're going to target late in the draft. But yeah, Bengals are solid. It's going to be a real interesting year to see what they do.
Yeah, I'm on board. I think Mixon's running back 5. You've got, in my opinion, Taylor Harris, McCaffrey, Henry, and then Mixon's kind of the best of the rest. Had that stat earlier. He was 3rd in the league in opportunities last season. 340 times they got him the ball, even with those other 3 receivers and Joe Burrow breaking out. So he's kind of the backbone of that team. And I love the receivers. I think they're great. It's the best 1-2 punch in the league, probably the best 1-2 punch in fantasy with Chris Godwin coming back from injury. But I think they're too high. They have them at 3 and 11. And I just don't see Joe Burrow and that offense producing 3 or 2 of the top 11 wide receivers in fantasy football. I think they both need to be knocked down a few notches. And the volume doesn't match up. Like Jamar Chase, he's a big play guy. He doesn't get those targets that the other receivers up there, even the Keenan Allens, the guys that are behind him, they're getting 130, 40 targets a year. And Burrow's not getting that. He's not hitting 100 catches. He's projected outside the top 10 in total targets. And there's only 7 reception difference between him and T. Higgins. That gap is too big. I think they're both too high. And the one I'm looking at is Tyler Boyd because he's the best wide receiver handcuff in football. I don't think there's a better wide receiver handcuff out there because he's proven he can be a top 30 wide receiver. He can be a solid number 2 guy. He's done it for years. So Jamar Chase and Higgins both kind of had some ailments last year, nothing serious, but they both, I think, missed a game or 2. And if they go down, Tyler Boyd is an instant top 30 wide receiver and a guy that you can play every week.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you guys just said. And Dave, I totally agree with you. When you pick between Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase, that's a no-brainer for me. It's Cooper Kupp all the way. It doesn't matter who you're playing. Cooper Kupp's good for 10 and 100, in my opinion, and probably a touchdown. Coop, what you said about him being 3 and T. Higgins being 11, I do agree with that a lot too. And in terms of fantasy value, I don't see Jamar Chase putting up consistent every week numbers. He will have weeks where he has 3 touchdowns and 150 yards and 10 catches. He will have weeks like that. But he's not going to have consistent 100-yard games. He's probably going to have weeks where he has 2, 3 catches for 50 yards and no touchdowns. You look at a guy like Deebo Samuel, who is behind him. The dude's going to consistently get the ball in his hands, whether it be out of the backfield. He's going to get his touches and opportunities. I also honestly think Devontae Adams in a new spot down there, he's going to be the go-to guy there as well. And Stephon Diggs. There's a lot of guys behind him that I can see have better fantasy upkeep consistently. Now, boom or bust situation, you're looking for somebody to give you can't take him out of your lineup. You can't. But there are other options, although he is ranked high. There are options out there that I think are going to give you better consistency. And that's what fantasy football is all about, is getting consistency every single week. Getting consistent numbers of points all week long. And not necessarily drafting the best players, but drafting the most consistent ones often helps you win. So,
and we've got a little time here. I think we went. I mean, that's it for the Bengals.
Yeah.
So I got one thing on them though.
Yep.
Go ahead.
This is interesting for me. They had the 3rd easiest schedule in the NFL last year. They will now have the 7th hardest, and now they're going from playing only the Jets in the AFC East to now they will be playing all 4 teams: Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, and Jets. And they will also be playing the entire NFC South division, which, forget Carolina and Atlanta, but you're still playing Tom Brady, you're still playing the Saints. And then their other filler teams are the Titans, the Chiefs, and the Cowboys. So that schedule sounds real brutal. And it's going to be real interesting to see, do the Bengals even go 500 this year?
Yeah, I think they do. I don't know if they're going to win their division. I really don't. It's going to be really hard to be. It's like I said about consistency. It's going to be hard to be consistent, especially with that schedule that you mentioned. Is Joe Burrow the dude? We'll know after this year. If he can get 12 wins, 11 wins after this schedule, he's a future Hall of Fame quarterback, in my opinion. But if he doesn't, is it the end of the world? Probably not. Here's my thing. I'm a Bengals fan, and I take bias out the window. This is a team that made it to the Super Bowl when nobody expected them to do so, and they got better in the offseason. Is it that much better? I don't know. But supposedly on paper, they got better. Their defense is going to have to continue to get better every week and stay healthy. And for God's sakes, somebody give Jesse Bates a contract.
Really, the only improvement they needed to make was a half second on the offensive line.
Yeah.
And maybe they did that.
I think they did that. I mean, they put an effort in. And that's what a lot of people really just want to see. You know, I mean, that's all I want to see. I just wanted to see some effort. And I think they did that. I think they did that for sure.